Hi, Stephen Oliver here with a little tutorial. A short while ago I uploaded a movie with 49 different teleportation and matter transmission effects on it. Since then I've had a couple of requests about how I did the Blake 7 teleportation. So this is what this is all about. Before we actually look into the details, let's have a quick look at how it looks. As you can see, it looks quite impressive, and it actually is divided into two parts. But before we look at the two parts, let's have a quick look at what the actual different layers are. These two layers here, the bottom two, are sound effects which I got from a BBC Radiophonics Workshop CD, and they're the effects of Blake 7's teleportation and reappearance. Then on top of that, so take everything out quickly, we have a background. This is simply a clean plate that I made by clipping out a single frame when I wasn't in the screen and exporting it and then re-importing it ready for using as a background. On top of that I have a shadow layer. The shadow is only a small part of a scene where I was in front of the camera, and as you can see there is a shadow here, because one of the biggest problems that I've seen with effects is there's no shadow, or the shadow never disappears. Either way it could be a bit of a problem. The third is the figure. This is the figure which will be going through the wobble effect and be reappearing afterwards. And finally the last part is a composite, which I already have here ready, which I use to create the running in circle and the form around the edge of the figure. Now the first part, the wobble effect, very quickly explained. All I did was add in an effect called waves, which is a part of the HitFilm product, and all I do when you go and look in here is that at this point, which is about 1 second in, I simply set keyframes on the amplitude, the frequency and the displacement angle, and then as we go on you can see they gradually change with time, going further and further and further until we finally get to the point here where everything is back to zero, but the frame beforehand they're at their maximum values, and you can see in approximately 3.5 seconds the displacement angle went through a total of 15 cycles. I put the frequency up to 12 and the amplitude up to 120, which is where you get, these effects getting more and more intense. Then in the last part of the cycle, approximately 1 second before the end, I went and set a keyframe on the opacity, which I then used to fade it away. It's the same figure that I then will be using later on for the figure reappearing as the effect disappears. Right. Now, as I said, the more important part is actually this. Though it's a composite, consists of various points, which when I run it just does that. Nothing, it's just simply there for the circle collapse and the effect of the outline. Again, if you look, there's various points here. We take them out. I have an empty frame again, which is overlaying, so since it's the same empty frame it doesn't really matter what I see. Then we have the circle, which you can see here. The circle itself is a composite. I made this because it consists of nothing more than a black plane, which forms my background, and the white frame, which has two masks on it. Now the trick is that I made an outer mask, which just, if you look, is a circle, nothing more, nothing less. But then I made a second mask just slightly smaller and inverted it so that I'm left with a ring rather than the entire circle, which is what I wanted. And this is then put in, as you can see here, as a layer which expands and contracts. That explains why the ring gets smaller and finer as you go into the middle. Then here, I need to turn this off, is a very important image. If you look here, my figure, which I have here, which is being wobbled around, or perhaps better here, this figure I have here has a mask around it, or had a mask around it when I first exported it. When I was creating that, I copied the mask onto the empty field, inverted it so that then I'm having everything that's inside, and outside everything's black. This has the end effect that I have the shape, and exactly, you can see even little bits of hair up here, the shape around my body. This is important because when the circle comes through, it needs at some point to disappear. I don't want the circle continuing onwards, so I have an overlay on it which simply masks it out as it gets smaller and smaller into the middle. Then I have an item I call the chroma key. This was originally taken from a chroma keyed shape, and what I did was that I then expanded it slightly and made a very slight outline around it. You can see there's nothing special, it's just a piece of media that I created where I took the shape, masked it, expanded a second mask around it, slightly larger, and there you go, you have an outline. So, turn everything on. Now we get to where the trick gets clever. Actually, I'll turn off these two for the moment. Oh, I need that one. I don't need that one. So now what you see is I have a circle coming in, and this is where I started to get clever. On this I have a mask, and the mask is basically a circular mask which just contracts inwards with the circle as it goes in, and is used to mask the shape. So you've got a circle that's contracting, and at the same time the circle is being allowed to reveal the outline. So what I do is simply mask in. So if I take the circle out, you can see how the effect is now going. As the mask goes in, it slowly reveals the outline. Comme ça. And the last thing, of course, as you've probably all just noticed, is that the outline here just gradually fades away with time. So if I turn all these back on again and go back to the beginning, you'll see circle comes in and goes out, but the whole point is, because I have this empty frame, empty image, which is above, in other words, in front of the circle gets masked away by it, but the shape here has another mask coming in, so it looks as though the two are actually coming down, and the circle is forming the shape. So the end effect is, when you put everything together and run it all up, you have as you can see, that last piece here, the figure just fades back in, and it looks as though it's overlaying and powering out the background, and at the same time, as you also see up here, the shadow is gradually being faded in again. Okay, so that's how I did it. Very simple, very effective, and quite honestly not as difficult as people might think. So if you're trying to do a similar effect or another trick, something like that, for instance a portal that expends out and the figure comes with it, that's how you do it. Just a few clean plates, a couple of overlays, expansions and masks. So until next time, whenever that may be, have fun and start making some portals.